Hello chess friends, here I have another game to share with you. This is the game from the Russian Premier League that was played between the two grandmasters Ernesto Inarkiev and Alexander Riazantsev. This game starts with the move c4, e6, knight to c3, and then d5. After that Ernesto played d4, so they transposed in the queen's gambit. Bishop to b4 was played, and then a3 and bishop capture on c3. So after that, pawn take on c3, and he created double pawns on the c file. But these two pawns on the square c3 and c4 are not a big problem for white, because he can always trade it for a black pawn on the d5. Black goes with knight to e7, then e3, and here we have castle for black. Bishop developed on the square d3, and then c5, knight to f3, knight to d7, and then castle. After that, black capture on the square c4. So black spent some time to wait until the white developed the bishop from the square f1 to square d3, to lose the tempo on the square d3, because he know that after d takes c4, white is forced to take it back on the square c4 with the bishop. So on that way, white will spend the one more tempo. And here bishop capture on the c4, queen c7, threat to capture on the square d4, and they open the way for the queen to attack the bishop on c4. Here we have queen to e2, b6, and then e4. Bishop to b7, just developing move, and bishop goes back to d3. Here we have knight to g4, g6, and then g3, prevent the knight moves on the square f4, and h6, then a4, rook from f to d8, and after that white goes with a5. He sacrificed the pawn because he wants to create a double pawns for black on a file. B capture a5, and then bishop goes to e3, rook b8, rook to a2. Idea of the rook a2 is to create a double rooks on a file. Bishop to c6, then knight to d2. Wants to transpose the knight from the square f3 over d2 to c4, because that is very a good square for the knight. When he goes on c4, he can attack the pawn on the square a5. So here we have a4, then h4, a6, and then bishop capture, queen a5. So queen attacks the pawn on the c3, and we have rook to c1, knight to f6, bishop goes back to d3, and queen a8. Queen create a very strong attack on the light diagonal. So with the bishop, she's attacking the pawn on e4. Also knight from the f6 gives support, and it's 3 times attack on the pawn on e4. So f3, defend the pawn on e4, and after that c takes d4, c takes d4, and here we have rook to c8, king to g2, bishop d7, knight to c4. Very stable position for white. He's playing with the very good bishops here, and the knight is also on a very good square. Material is equal right now. So knight to e8, h5, knight to f8. Very bad position for these two knights on the square e8 and f8. Knight to e5, rook c1, bishop c1, knight to f6, knight capture on the square d7, knight from 8 capture on the d7, and right now we in the end game with the two bishops. These two bishops on c1 and d3 against the two knights on the square d7 and f6. The bishop b5, attack the pawn on a4, knight b6, defense, g4, and then rook c8, bishop to d2, and knight to e8. He wants to transpose the knight from square f6 over e8 to d6. This can be very useful for him. So bishop to b4, control square d6, and then knight c7. Bishop goes back to d3, queen to c6, rook c2, queen goes back to a8, rook c5, knight goes back to is e8. With that move, black wants to simplify position and trade the rooks, but the rook a5 was played, queen b8 and bishop a6, rook d8, bishop to e7. Bishops make a very strong pressure on the rook, so rook capture on the square d4, and here white recognizes he can attack the knight on the b6 very strongly with a few pieces. So he goes first with the queen on the b2, which attacks the rook and also pin the queen on the b file. So rook goes to d1 and then bishop e2 first. Rook goes back to d7, bishop to c5, and he's attacking the knight on b6. So it looks that black will lose the piece. But after rook to b7, rook b5, he's attacking 3 times with the rook, bishop, and the queen on this pinned knight, which he cannot be moved. So because if he moves the knight, then rook is hanging. So here black recognized that he can go with a3, attacks the queen, and then bishop capture on a3 and knight d6. It's a big difference right now. Here we can recognize that black is able to go on d6. He's attacking the rook, but just one move before a3, he's not able to go on a d6 because rook will capture on the b6. So a3, bishop capture a3. Then here we have knight d6 attacks the rook. Rook goes to b4, knight to d7, and then e5 attacks the knight. Rook capture, queen capture, bishop capture, and then knight to c8. We are in the endgame with the 4 pawns for both player, and white is playing with the 2 bishops and black with the 2 knights. It's a pretty equal position, but white looks slightly better because his bishop can control a lot of diagonals here. So here we have f4, knight cb6, king f3, knight to d4, d5, sorry, and then bishop to d6. Here we have f6, bishop to b5 attacks the knight, knight to b6. The best position for a knight is to be connected like this way to defend each other. So e takes f6, knight takes f6, and then white is playing with a little bit better pawn structure. His pawns are together, they're creating just one island here, and the black pawns are easy targets, especially this pawn on the square e6. He can be easily attacked by the bishop, and maybe he can move the king in the center to increase the pressure on the pawn on e6. So here we have knight to bd5, bishop g6, knight h7, bishop a3, knight goes there, bishop goes back, king. We have few moves which looks like a prophylactic, but they are in a very deep strategy. g5, capture, capture. And right now we can see these 2 pawns on g5 and h5. They look untouchable for black knights, and there is no position where he can transpose the knight to attack any of these 2 pawns. On the other side we can see 2 bishops which are on a very strong diagonals. There, oh, sorry, I missed. So on h5, and this from a3, he's attacking the knight on the f8. So they're controlling very good diagonals, and they can organize yourself to attack the pawns on the squares e6 and g7. So here we have knight e7, king f4. White will need the king support for all actions here. Knight to d7, bishop b2, knight to d5, king f3, knight goes back to e7, king to g4, knight to f5. So right now white is able to capture on the square f5, but if he takes on f5, it's clear that he cannot finish the game very easily, because yeah, black will find a way to keep the draw. So he goes with the king to f4. Knight f8, bishop to a4, knight goes to d6, bishop a3, knight goes back, bishop c5, knight goes h4, bishop c6. White will try to create a strong pressure on the pawn on e6, but he needs to create a stable position for that. This bishop on e4 looks very good. He's controlling the 2 diagonals on both sides. So knight d7, bishop a3, knight d5. This is one very long endgame. So let's see, after a few moves, White decided to include the king in the game. So he need to transpose the king on the other side, and here is the position where he started the king journey. So king to g4, and after that he will continue with the king. So king f3, and then king e4. It would be the best way to play with the king around the knight and attack the pawn on e6. So he need to go over d4, c5, and e6 to attack the pawn on the e6 square, and then support with the bishop from d7. That will create a very strong attack on e6. So let's see, is it possible to keep the draw? King f7, king goes to d4, and then knight to e8. With that move, once again, he sacrificed the pawn on g7 because White simply capture on e8 and king capture, so bishop capture on the g7, and right now he's able to push the pawn and promote the queen. So let's see, knight f4 he tried, h6, king f7, and after bishop e5, Black simply resigned because he cannot stop White's idea of h7 and h8 to promote the queen. Just a few moves before, in this position, before the knight goes to e8, before this move, if he tried to keep the knights connected and he goes with the king on the g8, then White will continue his journey with the king c5. After king f7, king goes to d6, and he will transpose the bishop from a4 to d7 and attack on the e6. So let's see, if king goes g8, then he first can go with the pawn on g6 to control the square f7, and after that he is not able to defend the pawn on the e6. So yeah, that's the reason why he chose the line with the knight to e8, and after that result with this ending position. So after White goes with the bishop to e5, Black resigns because he is unable to stop the h pawn for promoting on the h8 square. So if he try knight to g6, for example, then h7 is a winning move because h8 is unstoppable. White is controlling square g7 with the bishop and the square g8 with the pawn. So in the next move he'll play h8 and promote the queen. So that's the reason why the Black resign in this position. So that was a very long game and a very sharp game with a very deep strategy. Yeah, the game played in the Russian National League. So I hope you enjoyed in this video, and see you in the next game analysis. Bye bye.